So I'm not saying, this is not an advocacy for Mr. Whitlam. And I was, in 1972 when Mr. Whitlam was elected, I was 18 and I couldn't vote, okay? And the Whitlam government did immense harm to the Prasser family in Ipswich in lots and lots of ways, okay? So I'm not a fan of Mr. Whitlam, but I have met him, but I just want to talk about what it was like, what he did, okay? And he won 2 elections. Mr. Albanese is the most successful Labor leader in its history, okay? There's a number of seats he's won and proportion of those he's got. But I'm just going to talk about how Whitlam revived the Labor Party, okay? I'm just going to put a context of this. So here's a bit of context. This is what Australia was like in the 60s, 50s, 60s, leading up to the Whitlam election 72. We had massive immigration. 2.5 million people came into Australia after World War II. And what was interesting, a lot of people, not just from England, Scotland and Wales and Ireland, but people from southern European countries. Just remember, after World War II, there were 60 million refugees in Europe, right? 60 million, right? Why? Because Russia had taken half of Europe, half of Germany moved west, and Germany was flattened, Italy was flattened by the war, and people wanted to get out and move. So massive immigration. This was very new because these were people from different countries. We had, as the previous speakers talked about, industrialisation. We had tariffs. This is when the Holden car started construction, right? In Australia, we made a car. We made lots of cars actually at one stage, sometimes not very good ones, but we did. Trade unionism was very strong. 60% of the workforce were in trade unions. Why? Because we had industries where unions could be easily organised, okay? So 60% of the workforce was in a trade union, and they're affiliated with the ALP. Sectarianism was rife. Catholics versus Protestants, okay? So there were police unions were supposed to be Catholic, there were the Masons and so on. There are Catholic schools, and we still have Catholic schools and so on. So sectarianism was quite rife, okay, in Australia. The big fight over should we fund non-government schools was over should we fund Catholic schools, right? Which the ALP were against. Suburbia expansion. We got all these people coming in, and the next thing, population boom. What comes after war? More babies, okay? So suburbia grew. And the socialists didn't like suburbia. They thought people should be in inner cities and high-rise. And thanks to Mr. Menzies, who pursued a pro-housing policy. Just remember, the academics wanted everyone to be in social housing. Mr. Menzies thought people should buy their own house. And the policies of the Menzies government was pro-housing. That's why in 1966, when Mr. Menzies retired, Australia reached its highest level of individual home ownership, which has never been reached since. It was not an accident. And he had the belief if you own something, you'll invest into your family, you'll commit to your family, you'll commit to your garden, you'll commit to working, you'll keep a job. That sort of view of the world, okay? And we still had strong links to the UK. Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II came out, Woodward see her passing by, love her till I die, all that sort of stuff. We still had those sort of links to Britain, even though they had deserted us a bit in World War II, okay? So that's sort of the background going on. So Australia's in a process of change, if you like. And here's what the Labor Party's problems were with Mr. Whitlam. The Labor Party been in opposition for 23 years. That is a long, long, long time to be in opposition federally. They had gone through several leaders. Mr. Chifley, he died as leader of the opposition. Mr. Evatt, who eventually was a High Court judge at one stage, but eventually became certifiably almost mad. Mr. Caldwell, his deputy, was a leader for quite a while, and then we got finally Mr. Whitlam towards the end of the 60s. Now, Labor's had lots of problems. They locked electoral losses. In 1957, the Labor Party split. That's where you got the Democratic Labor Party coming to being, okay? You had factions everywhere. Trade unions ran the show. Mr. Whitlam had to wait outside while the executive of the Labor Party met inside. The 36 faceless men, no women, sorry, were involved. He was just taking his orders from the executive. Socialism seemed to be terribly out of date. Australia economy was booming. This is the golden age. The state aid debate, the Labor Party is essentially was a Catholic party, okay? But the Labor Party were opposed to giving funding to Catholic schools. Who gave funding to Catholic schools? Mr. Menzies. I'm sure he didn't do it for politics, but he's the one who started it, okay? And we had this phenomenal economic prosperity. So why vote Labor when everything is booming? This is boom time. Unemployment was 1.5%. Okay, 1.5%. Okay, and we had the Cold War background. You know, Reds under the beds and all that sort of stuff. Reds in the trade unions. Hungary uprising. Okay, Eastern Europe. Iron Curtain, all that sort of stuff. So it wasn't a good time for Labor. Now here's some voting trends for you, and you can just see what's going on. 1958, this is a two-party preferred vote. ALP got 46%. There was a swing to the Liberal Party. 1961, Mr. Menzies, the ALP got a bigger majority of votes, and Mr. Menzies won by one seat. Okay, one seat. Okay, so that under Arthur Caldwell. But then Menzies bounced back. He never lost his nerve. Next election, 63, ALP vote went down, swing to the Liberal Party. Mr. Holt became the Prime Minister. Another big swing to the Liberal Party. Then we had John Gorton, completely hopeless. Swing away, 7% swing to the Labor Party. Now, by this time, that's the first election Whitlam led the Labor Party as the leader of the Labor Party. What did he get? He got a 7% swing to him. And that laid the foundation for the next election under poor old Billy McMahon, another swing to the ALP. We had election 74, Whitlam won, slight swing to the Liberal Party. And finally in 75, we've got Malcolm Fraser, and we had a 7% swing back to the Liberal Party, and Malcolm won the biggest majority in federal history. So that's sort of a bit of a scenario what was going on. You can see it took a long time for the Labor Party to get back into the game. That's the point I'm trying to make. And it was mainly because of Whitlam they got back into the game. Now, who was this guy Whitlam? He was born in Melbourne. His father was Deputy Crown Solicitor of the Commonwealth Government. He wasn't a railway worker or a labourer. They moved to Sydney. Gough Whitlam went to private schools. He didn't go to high schools like John Howard, okay, or Billy Snedden. He went to Canberra Grammar School, one of the most expensive schools in Australia. He went to Sydney University. He studied law and the classics. He joined the RAAF. He spent during World War II. He flew around for 4 years and became a flight lieutenant. He joined the ALP in 45. Now, you think he should join the Liberal Party. He joined the ALP. He was concerned about equity and all that sort of stuff. And he finally won a seat in 1952, which he held till he died. And he finally became deputy leader in 1960. And for 7 years, he was deputy leader to Arthur Caldwell, right? And he was chafing at the bit to become the leader. And finally, Caldwell moved out. So, and he became Prime Minister, and then he retired in 78. Now, what's really interesting about Whitlam, he doesn't fit the ALP stereotypical role of that time, okay? He wasn't a Catholic. He was not religious. He didn't pretend to be. He went to private schools. His father was a professional Commonwealth public servant. He wasn't really part of the left faction. he wasn't part of any faction. He was really looking for anyone to support him. He wasn't trade unionist. He wasn't working class, but he was highly educated, highly professional. That's the thing. So this seems a very unusual fit for the Labor Party. Now, what did he do? What did he do to get the Labor Party in opposition for 23 years back into government? And not just get back into government, and I think what Jewel was mentioning is the legacy or the impact of the Whitlam government is quite phenomenal. It's long-term impact. They lost office, but many of the things they did, so-called reforms, are with us today, rightly and wrongly, okay? I do agree with abolishing the entertainment tax on the pill. I thought that was a good idea, okay? He modernised the Labor Party. He said, we can't keep running the party by, just like little cliques of trade unions and we're fighting the class war. That's really not working anymore. He appointed, they had a big review of the structure of the Labor Party to try and modernise it and get members and things like that. He started to talk, Whitlam was a great speaker, and he started to tell a story about what the Labor Party was about. So this, which we didn't do at the last election. The Liberal Party did not tell a story at the last election. This had some ad hoc policies. He started talking about unemployment is important to solve, but life is more than just jobs. It is how you live in suburbia. Do you have good transport in suburbia? Do your kids have schools to go to in suburbia? Are the roads working properly in suburbia? Do you have an inside toilet in suburbia? Large parts of Queensland and Australia did not have sewerage systems, okay? And Whitlam was the one who started to talk about those sort of things. He said it's no use having a job if your life is terrible, if conditions are terrible. So he talked about, and that had an appeal for a country that was increasing in wealth. Between 1950 and 1970, our GDP increased 4 times in real terms. That is, our wealth increased 4 times, okay? So you got more money, but you want where you're going to spend that money on. What are the facilities being provided by government? This is where the role of government is important. He talked about national health systems. We didn't have a proper national health system. We had private insurance. And I'm in favour of a national health system. You're going to go to America, 60 million people in America don't have access to a health system, okay? He talked about education, and there's good things and bad things were going on there. He talked about equality. You don't have to agree with equality, but he talked about those things. These things that sounded good to people. He talked about multiculturalism because we're having this greater mix of people from different countries, all right? Okay? So not everyone is from England, okay? He talked about, in Australia we talk about the fair go, so he was trying to connect that fair go image with actual real policy. That's the point I'm trying to make. He was connecting to those things. And he talked about a more independent Australia, though for Whitlam it meant signing up to more United Nations things. I always thought that was odd, but anyway, that's what he did. But it sounded good. See what I'm getting at? It sounded good. Australia should be independent from England and so on, and the Queen and so on and so forth. So he talked about those things. And he seemed to be talking about modernising Australia. Australia, very good after World War II, big industrial growth, big population growth, but we still were sort of stuck in a sort of lot of other ways. And the fact we had a government in power for 23 years made it look like that. That's all I'm trying to get at. So what did he do? Big party reorganisation, as I said before. Lots of policy work, lots of work about different policies. And he developed for the 72 election a thing called the program, which was 120 pages long about how he was going to, fix Australia. Maybe too much, of course, too much. But that's what it sounded very appealing to a lot of people, that he was a person who had some vision for Australia, okay? He managed to take the party with him, even though he almost lost the leadership. he finally got the Labor Party to agree to state aid for non-government schools, to start funding Catholic schools and independent schools. He almost lost his job over that thing. That's bipartisan policy now. He networked. He put his job on the line. He networked. And here, this is an advertisement, blown up advertisement, from 1974 newspaper. And it's before the 1974 election, the second election Whitlam faced as Prime Minister. These are all the academics. What do they say? 404 Australian academics want Labor to have a chance because. They give all these different reasons. Now, I don't agree with academics doing that. Some of them taught me at the time. I was at university in 1972. But the point I'm trying to make is he was networking to a range of different groups, talking to people and getting them on board. That's the thing. And some of those people exercise influence on others. The Liberal Party wouldn't know how to network with itself, let alone with people outside the confines of the Liberal Party. Okay? I can assure you very much that's the case. So Whitlam, Labor Party are very good at networking. They've got the teachers' union and the nurses' union and those sort of unions. And what are they dealing with? People and so on. And they have a training ground for training people to be in organisations and to get into government. Look at you look at the current ministry of the Albanese government and look at their backgrounds. Have a check out what their backgrounds is. He reached out and he went out and made really good appearances and presentations, and he developed this very modern narrative about what the party was about. Now, I don't think we can show that. What I want to show you is if you want to go on the web, you'll see his famous 1972 policy speech at Blacktown, Men and Women of Australia, right? That speech. And the speech, which went on for 30 minutes, you really felt that he was talking to everyone in the Australia and about bringing them on. And it sounded like this person meant what he said and felt that he had knew where he was going. You didn't see that at the last federal election. You didn't have him saying, what do we stand for? What are we going to do? It was a sort of a mixed bag. So that's what I find pretty interesting. Now, he made lots of mistakes. Mr. Whitlam made lots of mistakes, okay? As I said, he did great harm to the Prasser family. Big spending, inflation went through the roof, 18%, you know. The inflation we've got now is peanuts compared to what we had in Whitlam. Unemployment went through the roof. He got into a big spending role, some things that we needed to spend money on, but it came at the wrong time because we just got into the oil crisis. We had an oil crisis in 1974. Like we're going to have one soon again, I suspect. Okay. He tried to do too many things at once and government got overloaded. Okay, it got overloaded. And the public service couldn't cope and things came undone, if you like. And a lot of the people, one of the things that I think is very important, if you want to do reform, you've got to bring people with you. People don't like change. Now, Campbell Newman is the classic case of how not to run a government, okay? Rushed, did everything, unnecessarily rushed, and people don't like that amount of change. You've got to move step by step and where you want to go to. Whitlam tried to do everything in 3 years. Had he tried to do everything in 6 years, it might have worked, but the system broke down, okay? And he had a ministry of people who had never been in government before, didn't know what they were doing. We had crocodile farms and subsidies and things like that. Lots of policy blunders went on, lots of mistakes. And he suffered from, Whitlam was, what shall we say, not a person who lacked self-confidence. Okay, right? Okay, he didn't lack self-confidence. So he overthought what his abilities were. So it all came undone. However, many of the in a book I've edited, many of the things he brought in are with us, rightly or wrongly. And he changed the agenda of discussion. But he did it through a whole range of things. So what are some lessons? Firstly, you've got to get your party structure right. Now, one of the problems of the Liberal Party, it hasn't got a party structure. Not many people are members of it. Okay? Right? So it's run by a clique. You've got to have a purpose. You've got to indicate that your party stands for something, not just what the pollsters say or the media people tell you to say. Okay? You've got to have an overarching philosophy. I wouldn't know what the Liberal Party philosophy is these days. I think Jacinta Price summed it up pretty well, but that's one person. You've got to have the research for your policies so that they get... The one area of policy I admire about the Whitlam government is the issue on urban affairs. Whitlam was the one who understood, where do most Australians live? They live in we're the most urbanised country in the world. He was the one who said, we've got to put more money and funding into suburbia and to provide the services where people live. I always think that was where the Liberal Party could have made a big mark. He appealed to an emerging Australia, okay? The changing population demographic mix, okay? That was what he understood it. He understood that, I think. He had a coherent narrative. You may not agree with the narrative, but it sounded coherent. It sounded like it fitted together. It wasn't just a cobbled together of a patchwork of policies to try and which way the wind is blowing, which way do we get votes. He really brought in a level of professional campaigning that has been lacking on the non-Labor side of politics for yonks. Professional campaigning, there's never been... There is an It's Time song, by the way, if you want to watch it and see all our TV stars singing it and so on. And he networked with the best and the brightest. Now, yes, we know academia is left of centre, but there's many people in academia who are not left of centre. 40% of academia votes non-Labor, okay? Right? 40% of teachers vote non-Labor, right? We know that. Liberal Party never talks to them. If you want to get some ideas, you've got to go out and talk to lots of people and build those networks up. So I'm not saying the Whitlam government is the one we should follow. I'm just saying here is a party in the doldrums for 23 years. No one thought it had a chance ever of getting into office. There were books written like Labor in Vain, Labor is Finished, and so on. They underwent a split and so on, and under Whitlam and his determination, they got back to office and they've left a questionable heritage for us all. But it can be done. But the point I like to make in a book which Anthony's got over there, the Liberal Party whinges about the ABC all the time, right? The ABC's biased, they don't have the programs. The Liberal Party has been in office for 9 years, from 2013 to 2022. In that 9 years, they did nothing about the ABC. If you want to do something about something, you've got to have, where do you want to be? What sort of, I'm in favour of a public broadcaster, what sort of broadcaster do you want? And you've got to have a strategy to get there. You don't just make your policies up month by month, week by week, okay? So that's the point I'm trying to make about things. So Whitlam's got some interesting things people should say. Now, academics tell me, my academic colleagues, friends, former friends, tell me they don't read The Australian. Oh, why don't you read The Australian? Oh, I don't like Murdoch Press. Yeah, but shouldn't you be reading, you're a political scientist, shouldn't you be reading what The Australian says, Now, I read everything. I read The Australian, I read the Financial Review, I even read, the Courier Mail doesn't take me long to read, I even read the Saturday paper. You ever read the Saturday paper? And I read all sorts of academic publications. You've got to know what the other side is thinking. You can't lock yourself away and say, I only read what makes me feel comfortable, right? Because you can't attack the other side unless you know what they're thinking and how they think, okay? So you've got to watch, and painfully, we do turn off the 7:30 report, I think, in our household. My wife likes to watch it all the time. She's an ABC addict. But you've got to watch and see what's going on the other viewpoint about things. Otherwise, you can't beat them. So my academic colleagues who won't read The Australian, which often has some good articles in it, you know, whether you agree with them or not, you should read those things. So that's what we've got to do. We've got to understand what the other side is doing and thinking if we're going to take them on, okay? So no one has a monopoly of knowledge. It's always good to find out what other people are thinking. So anyway, there's some lessons from Mr. Whitlam, and I hope you got something from that. Okay, thanks very much.